Rolling, and you're on.
On June 6th, 1944, 7,000
Start again.
on June 6th, 1944, 7,000 I can't say thousand. On June 6th, 1944, 7,000 British and American ships landed on the beaches of Normandy. Soon after, 160,000 men jumped off those same boats and attacked the German-occupied fort. Months of planning and delays due to bad weather were all coming out on this one beach. In the months leading up to D-Day, the USA was pressuring Great Britain to take back France. Great Britain agreed to do so because Germany was invading Russia, so they needed to open up a new front to give them a break. The theory behind it is that Germany would not be able to keep its armies together on two fronts. Another reason that the attack was initiated is because of Germany not using its U-boats, making the ocean safe to transport supplies. The United States chose Dwight D. Eisenhower, and the British chose Bernard Montgomery to lead the attack. It would not be as easy as it sounded. The Germans had a massive advantage if they knew exactly what was coming for them. This is why the Allies needed a hoax in order to cover up exactly when and where it was going to happen. D-Day was planned to begin with paratroopers dropping into France by moonlight, the late evening or early morning before the invasion. Their goal was to take over the bridges and roads that the Germans could use to move the battlefields once the invasion began. The rest of the troops would land on 5 beaches. The British Army would land in the east on the codenamed beaches Sword and Gold. The Canadians would invade Juno Beach. Omaha and Utah Beach would be invaded by the American Army. The Allies needed to be sure of the geographical information of Normandy, where the Nazis were, landmines, etc. They sent frogmen to get sand samples from the beaches that were patrolled by German sentries. French patriots gave anti-tank ditch around strong point or hedgehog 30 to 40 feet apart map notations. The weather, tides, and moonlight conditions were the main decision makers on when the operation would take place. Tides were important since the invasion was amphibious. It was necessary for it to be low tide because it would give the Allies the advantage of seeing where mines and other obstacles were located. The risk with low tide was the larger amount of the land the infantries would have to cross. The operation had been previously scheduled for May 1st, 1944. Because the date was fast approaching, the U.S. wanted to practice for the operation, and on April 27, 1944, Exercise Tiger occurred. However, by that date, the Allies still did not have enough landing crafts to proceed. The operation was pushed back until June 5th of the same year. Following assembly and a 24-hour delay, the invasion fleet had proceeded across the English Channel along 5 lanes cleared by minesweepers toward the French coast. The waters off the U.S., Utah, and Omaha, and British-Canadian Gold, Juno, and Sword landing beaches had been divided into transport offloading areas, fire support channel and areas, and lanes for the assault craft. Cruisers and battleships bombarded enemy coastal fortifications and strongpoints, followed by tactical airstrikes. In each of the initial attack waves, LCTs, or landing craft tanks, carried specially configured amphibious tanks that were to serve as immediate infantry fire support once ashore. Patrol boats served as control vessels off each beach. Destroyers and other small combatants stood by to provide gunfire support, and loaded landing craft proceeded from their line of departure, or the Dixie Line, toward the beaches. 11,000 aircraft also took part, including fighters, bombers, transports, and gliders. The invasion force also had the support of around 350,000 members of the French resistance, who launched a hit-and-run attacks on German targets. The D-Day operation began shortly after midnight with an Allied assault by 3 airborne divisions, the U.S. 82nd and 101st on the right flank of the American forces, and Britain's 6th Airborne on the left flank of the British. Seaborne forces were then put ashore on 5 Normandy beaches. The initial air and seaborne landings had mixed results. On Utah, resistance from the Germans was slight, and U.S. troops were off the beach by midday. But on Omaha, the Americans lacked the specialized armament the Germans were able to pin them down on the beach, resulting in a high casualty count. On Gold and Juneau, the specialized armor of the British and Canadian ships enabled troops to get off their beaches quickly. On Sword, British troops were able to link up with airborne units that had been dropped further inland. The operation was ultimately successful and marked the beginning of liberation in Western Europe from Nazi control, but it came at a great human cost. Around 10,500 Allied troops are estimated to have been killed, wounded, or reported missing. Good?
Was that it?
Yeah.